We're going to do the best we can to say goodbye to the stadium today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Locked On Bills is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Well, folks, welcome in. It's the last conversation that we'll have before the Bills face the Jets in Week 18, the regular season finale, and, of course, the likely last ever game played at Highmark Stadium. So we're going to spend a lot of time today reflecting on Highmark Stadium. I'm going to have a goodbye message to the facility, and I've actually asked a bunch of people from the Discord channel to hop in and share a message. So we're going to have a whole segment of that, and then we'll talk to Dr. Kyle Trimble of Banged Up Bills later on about injuries. So a little bit different week. I think it's warranted based on the circumstances of this game. You have a Bills team that will be a wild card team in the playoffs, and you have a Jets team that have lost their last 4 games by at least 3 touchdowns each. I mean, it's not really about the game, right? The Bills versus the Jets. It's about the close of the season and, of course, the close of the stadium. And so there are a few things that are going to be interesting about this game in particular. Of course, I'm excited for the red helmets. The pictures that have been coming out of practice look so good, and I'm excited to see that. Josh Allen's start streak, right? As Sean McDermott confirmed that he's going to be good to go for Sunday, and, you know, they'll see in terms of how much he plays, but he's going to go out there and continue his start streak. And right now it's at 139 consecutive games, the longest active start streak for a quarterback in the NFL, and, you know, one of the longer streaks of all time. And so that will be something that continues on Sunday, and we don't know how much Josh will play, but, you know, he's at least going to get in there and start the game. And then there's, of course, James Cook, who currently leads the NFL in rushing and has a good chance to win the rushing title. And, you know, I think a lot of people are curious about how much that's going to factor into this game. Is that something that Sean McDermott's going to let James Cook go out and pursue? And, you know, Sean McDermott, during his media availability on Friday, you know, he said, look, we're aware of it. We respect it, you know, but obviously getting to the playoffs healthy is going to be the priority. Tim Graham wrote a great piece about the rushing title, and I want to share with you a couple of quotes that he was able to pull from a couple of Bills offensive linemen. And you can read this piece on The Athletic. I will link it in today's show notes. And here's a quote from Osiris Torrance, and I'll give you one from Spencer Brown. Osiris Torrance says, quote, "That's one of the main things for our offense right now. As an offensive lineman, to block for an MVP quarterback and a rushing champion in back-to-back seasons, that's nice. That's what we're playing for in this last game." Spencer Brown, outside of the Super Bowl, the one thing you could tell your kids as an offensive lineman, back in 25, we blocked for the rushing champ. This means a lot. This means a lot to the players. You know, not only James Cook, who surely it means a lot, but his teammates, right? There's a lot that goes into rushing yards. It's offensive linemen, it's receivers, blocking, it's tight ends. It's a team award. Certainly James Cook is going to carry that title, but there's a lot that goes into it, and I feel like there's a lot of pride in it. Certainly feels like something that the Bills are going to let James Cook have the opportunity to go pursue on Sunday. But obviously the idea here is to get out of this game healthy. And so we'll talk later in the episode about the injuries. We'll talk to Dr. Kyle Trimble. We'll get into Josh Allen's foot and all the things that are going on. But the next little bit is going to be talking about this stadium and the last game at the stadium. And you're going to hear from me now, but you'll hear from others here in segment 2. And I hope that you'll enjoy listening to these stories and thoughts as much as I did kind of putting them together. But for me, this is what I have to say. The old stadium, it's been called Rich Stadium, Ralph Wilson Stadium, New Era Field. For one season, it was Bills Stadium back in 2020, and now it's Highmark Stadium. It opened in 1973. And since then, there have been hundreds of players, over a dozen head coaches, more than 10 general managers. There's been 2 different owners. And look, to the dismay of everyone, one day Josh Allen's not going to be the quarterback. And to the delight of some, one day Sean McDermott won't be the head coach and Brandon Beane won't be the general manager. The players, the coaches, they change. Bills Mafia is the constant. Us, the fans, we're the ones that have filled those seats for over 50 years. And we're the ones that will fill the seats for another 50 years across the street. So when I think about my lasting thought on Highmark Stadium, it's not really the games. It's not really the players. It's the people that I shared experiences with. My dad taking me to my first game in the 90s against the Patriots, sitting in the upper deck, eating cold, wet sandwiches. Going with my brother for several years in a row in December when we were both in college and sneaking in a game during winter break. Taking my wife, once a Panthers fan, now fully converted to Bills Mafia, to her first game and seeing her fall in love with the environment. Taking my in-laws to their first game, who were Washington fans, and seeing them realize just how different football was in Western New York and them becoming Bills fans. Taking my daughter to the Blue Red and her being so excited to go inside that stadium and to see Josh Allen. Those will always be my favorite memories. But my prevailing thought is that the stadium to me is a symbol of unity, a place where tens of thousands of people can show up, tailgate, sing together, dance together, high five and hug strangers who feel like family because you unite over rooting for the Buffalo Bills. Doesn't matter what you believe, doesn't matter where you're from. In that arena, people are united, and I love that. And here's the good news. That same unity will exist across the street, and the existence of that new stadium means that future generations of Bills Mafia will have the same opportunity to create the memories we have all enjoyed and will continue to enjoy. Oh, yeah. That week 1 win that I was at over the Ravens, that was pretty cool, too.
Let's go, Buffalo! Joe! Happy Victory Monday to you!
Nobody knows your money goals better than you. Robinhood puts you in control of your money with tools that work as hard as you do. Locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again, channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. Trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto, all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood Legends Advanced Tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself, expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move.
I've seen a lot of incredible and painful games at Highmark Stadium, but the one that sticks out to me is a December 2002 game against the Dolphins that I went to with my dad. Ricky Williams ran all over us, but then the snow started coming down hard, the Dolphins froze, and the Bills stormed back for the victory. By the time we got to our car, it was a full-on blizzard. It took us 4 hours to get home, but that car ride with my dad is one of my favorite memories of my life. That was the last game I saw with him at the stadium before he passed. Highmark was so much more than the games. It was everything surrounding it. The laughter, the joy, the family, the lifelong memories. Thank you, Highmark.
My favorite memory from the stadium was my first game, day after Christmas, 1993 against the Jets, the coldest game at the time. And I remember my family sitting around on Christmas trying to figure out Ocean's 11 style, how are we going to bundle up this 10-year-old to make it through minus 28 wind chill? Well, I ended up having a great time. The Bills won, and I hope they do the same this week to close out Highmark. Go Bills. Happy New Year.
My parents are from Western New York, but my dad worked in the oil industry and we moved around a lot when I was a kid. In the mid 90s, we lived in Puerto Rico for 3 years. And in 96, we visited Western New York for Christmas, and I desperately wanted it to snow. On December 22nd, we went to my first Bills game. I loved the game, but my favorite memory of Highmark happened in the parking lot. We were tailgating, and my dad taught me how to throw a football. While we were playing catch, it started to snow, and it was just pure magic. Go Bills!
What's up, Bills Mafia? My favorite memory of Highmark comes from October 1st, 2023. Took my 8-year-old son, my 70-year-old dad to a game against the Miami Dolphins. The Buffalo Bills absolutely destroyed them in the game. 5 touchdowns from Josh Allen, 3 from Stephon Diggs. Everybody's singing, hey, in the concourse after the game. The best part was my son looked at me and said, Dad, I think I found my people.
Happy New Year, Bills Mafia. Ryan McKenna calling in from Philadelphia. Highmark, end of an era. So many good memories. I think what immediately comes to mind is the perfect playoff game against the Patriots and Micah Hyde's magic ninja interception against Mac Jones. Still one of the best plays I think I've ever seen in my life. Thought it was a touchdown, and Micah Hyde said, nope, not today. And then we just scored on every drive. 0 degrees, awesome. But going back, I mean, that was a highlight, but it's the little things. It's Jim Kelly football camp when I was a kid. It's the playoff droughts when we stunk, but you can get cheap tickets. So I went every year for Christmas with my dad and my brother, and we just froze. It's those moments where this crazy, passionate fan base came together and really became Bills Mafia, tailgating hard, going a little nuts. It's this community, right? I have no doubt we're going to make some great memories in the new stadium, but thank you, Highmark, and go Bills.
So I think my favorite Highmark Stadium memory is attending the Panthers Bills game. My parents were there. Joe and I were obviously there. We got there a little bit earlier than my parents, and we went to the Mafia house. And Joe knew a few people there that were going to be tailgating, and so they told us to come by. And naturally, we showed up empty-handed because we were out of towners and didn't have a whole lot of coolers or anything to store. But they told us they would take care of us. And I was still a committed Panthers fan, so I showed up in my Panthers gear at the Mafia house, and of course, I got a few looks and boos, but everyone was so friendly. But I specifically remember a guy coming up to me and just telling me how amazing Joe was and how much he loved listening to the podcast. And he was like, "You guys don't have anything to drink." And I was like, "Well, we just kind of showed up. We were from out of town, so we don't have a whole lot with us." Um, but he handed me an entire case of beer, an entire case. And he was like, "This is all yours." He was like, "Just carry it around." He even gave me a koozie. And so from then on, I was just carrying around a whole case of beer, and I was able to give some away to people. Um, but the fact that I had Panthers clothes on at the Bills Mafia house, was still handed a case of beer, was welcomed by Pinto Ron and everybody over in Hammer's Lot, and just able to enjoy the atmosphere without being there as an opposing fan and feeling unwanted was probably my favorite experience. And that really set me off as a Bills fan. Obviously, with Joe being doing the podcast and everything, that helped tremendously with the loyal fan base he has. But just being there and feeling welcome no matter what team you're pulling for, or if you're there and don't even like football, people are just there to have a good time and to really rally around each other and be a support system even when it's not football related. So that's definitely my favorite memory of Highmark Stadium. And obviously, all the memories after that, as being a Bills fan now, are even better. But I love that memory, just knowing that it doesn't matter what team you pull for, what you're there for. The people at Highmark are the Mafia, and they are there to make you feel very welcome.
Hey Joe, it's Alex, and my favorite moment from Highmark Stadium's got to be from this year when I went to go see the Bills take on the Finns, or I think it was in like September or something. And the reason why it was my favorite is because I drove all the way up to Buffalo from Long Island, spent the whole weekend with my friends, spent the whole day tailgating, and really that's what the Bills and the stadium means to me, is that sense of community, that sense of hanging out with your friends, enjoying some good food, enjoying some good ball. That's what it all means to me. Go Bills.
What's up, Bills Mafia? Happy New Year. All right. My favorite memory of the stadium was 2011. It was like my second or third Bills game ever. I was with my mom. The Bills were playing the Patriots. It was Ryan Fitzpatrick year. They went down early. They went down like 20 points or something like that very early. I wanted to go, but my mom was like, no, we're staying. Thank God she did, because Tom Brady threw 4 picks. Drayton Florence had that pick 6. Ryan Lindell made the field goal as times expired, and it was one of the few times I've ever seen the Bills beat the Patriots in my own lifetime.
What's up, Bills Mafia? This is Kevin and Kristen coming to you live from St. Pete Beach, and we are season ticket holders in between the Eagles and Jets game, just trying to take a week off winter because we live in the frosty north in Barrie, Ontario, just north of Toronto. And Kristen's favorite Highmark memory is
celebrating my 50th birthday, beating the Kansas City Chiefs in early November with friends and family there to celebrate. It was awesome.
And we've been season ticket holders for 5 years, so love, of course, watching Josh every week. Probably the San Francisco game last year was a highlight. Kristen and I went. It was snowing. That was the touchdown in the corner, the diving touchdown, and the toss from Amari Cooper. And we just feel grateful to get to go each and every week, and we're looking forward to the last game at Highmark this coming Sunday against the Jets. Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Happy New Year, Joe Marino, to you and your family and to all of your listeners. Thank you so much for asking me to be a part of this video compilation that you're doing. You know, when I think about this stadium and I think about the very first game that my dad took me to in 1982, the memories that I have and the visions that I still have in my mind of that, the hundreds and hundreds of games as a season ticket holder that I've been to, taking my wife to her first game, taking my daughter, McKenna, to her first game, and just what that means, the memories that we have and that we share, and to know that that's going to be gone soon. That place, that facility, that place that we've all gone to for decades and decades and decades is no longer going to be there. You know, one thing that really sticks out to me, that still gives me butterflies. It has my whole entire life. When you're walking through the concourse, and I think everybody that's been there knows what I'm talking about. When you're walking through the concourse, maybe not to your seat yet, not to your tunnel yet, but then you get a glimpse of the stadium through the tunnel, and you see down, and the epic and the majesticness of seeing down through the tunnel and seeing the opposite side of the stadium. And then as you turn the corner and you see that for, headed to your seat, and what that means, like what you're about to be a part of and what you're about to partake in. But as you come out of the tunnel as well, like in just that feeling, that aura of that stadium. I could probably go on for about 5 minutes over all the things that stadium means to me and the things I'm potentially going to miss, but I got to keep it short. So, but yeah, the memories that I have, knowing that stadium is not going to be there forever, but it's on to bigger and better things. So appreciate it. Love you guys. Happy New Year. Go Bills.
Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. And Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour always brings some new boosts, bonuses, and surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. It's going to add extra strategy to Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. I'm joined now by Kyle Trimble. He's a doctor of physical therapy. He runs bangedupbills.com. You can follow him on social media at bangedupbills. He joins us each week to get ready for the upcoming game from an injury perspective. And Dr. Kyle, interesting game this week. Obviously, the Bills' number one priority is getting through it healthy and ready for the postseason. But there are some dynamics to talk about. And I do want to once again ask you about Josh Allen. He didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday, limited on Friday. Sean McDermott said he's good to go. Obviously, it remains to be seen how much he plays. We know that he's going to go out there for at least the first snap. We'll see how many more after that. But this foot thing, it's obviously something that is on everyone's minds. What'd you see during the last game? What are you thinking about in terms of how they've managed it and the messaging moving forward?
I think I'm managing it the best I can. It's, late in the season. Every guy is beat up. Every guy, needs more rest than what they're getting. And they're just trying to do the best job they can with a quarterback one there. So we did see in the game that he was still rushing around. He'd still move around, but he did aggravate the foot at one point during the game. I know that they said in the postgame press conference that he had to get x-rays and that head athletic trainer Nate Bresky and Sean McDermott were watching the foot and seeing how he was doing, see if they need to pull him at any point during the game. So there's performance was definitely much on their minds to make sure that the foot didn't get hurt worse. We didn't see him rush as much. I believe that they had said that's the most passing attempts he had, at least in the pocket. We definitely did see how the game was affected because he wasn't as mobile there. So we know the foot's going to be an issue for the rest of the postseason. It's not going to get 100% better, but the more time they can give him off and make sure that it's at least pointing in the right direction, healing, then it gives us the best chance to have him play as far as he can and deep into the postseason. So like I said, we know it's not going to get better, but hopefully the more he stays off it, the round the clock rehab they can do to it, the better he can at least get by and hopefully gets a little better as he goes on. Hopefully divisional round, AFC championship, even Super Bowl, where it's going to be there, but he can get through it.
I want to talk about another player that doesn't have an injury designation. In fact, he's not on the active roster. That's Ed Oliver. A lot of people are excited about the potential return. We know he's working through the bicep, but Sean McDermott shared that there's been a setback that has nothing to do with this bicep. It's his knee. Had a meniscus surgery. What can you tell us about that situation and how it could affect his timeline?
When they said he had a setback, you immediately thought bicep because that's what they even referenced. But then they came out on Wednesday and said it was meniscus. And we saw his Instagram story, it was the right knee. It sounds like this was an acute tear, and they probably figured the best way to get him back up to speed so that he wasn't going to lose more time than he already has is just to scope out the knee, which was trim out the offending piece just so that the knee wasn't going to lock up on him, wasn't going to swell and cause him pain. It's pretty routine surgery. We saw that Alec Anderson had this back in the preseason, or at least I assume that was, whether it was he had some type of knee clean out. And the same thing with TJ Sanders midway through the year. So this is a pretty common thing, and sometimes we don't even hear about this stuff. This also might have been an area where they said, hey, this is easier to trim it out, get him back. And there's different areas in the meniscus where it heals and where it doesn't heal. If this was a big enough tear, they would have repaired it and shut him down for the season. So the fact that they just trimmed it out and said, let's get you back there is positive. We don't know exactly what date. We know he had the surgery. He had it Monday, so it was pretty fresh tear. I did have one of the users in the Discord, the Locked On Bills Discord, reach out and suggest that, was it an acute tear or was it an old tear? It's possible that it was an old tear, but you would think that if there was type of meniscus damage previously, they would have taken care of this in the past. And he hasn't really been on the injury report too often for any knees. There's one in 2020 where he had like a direct on collision with the knee. And then there was a preseason knee injury, which he returned back to practice like the next day after the game there. So I'm less concerned about being an old tear that happened to flare up, but either way, this is terrible timing. This does push his timeline back a little bit. I had said at the time of the biceps injury that a wild card return would be really aggressive because it'll be about 10, 11 weeks. And it's not that he couldn't go back and do normal things. We see him do plenty of things, pick up his kids, working off to the side with the trainers. It's just that we want to make sure the tendon is fully healed to the bone, that he can do the things he needs to in an NFL game, which is much different than picking up a child. So if they were pushing a wild card, that this knee surgery pretty much pushes that out altogether, because you need at least 2 or 3 weeks for this knee to get better. You would need even longer in most cases, but once again, with the round the clock rehab and the little techniques and knowing that they're getting paid millions of dollars, they're going to push the rehab timelines a little bit quicker for a guy like Ed Oliver with his meniscus. So you look at the return for the divisional round, you look at a return in the AFC Championship game if they can make it that far. That's all depending that they win the first game against Wildcard. If they don't win, then that's it there. And I don't think that they're going to rush him back out there for a game that, I'm not saying it doesn't mean anything. It means everything, but I don't think they're going to push him out there with the benefit of, not benefit. He hasn't played in 2-3 months here now. So why would you get him back out there to rush him out and potentially aggravate the knee, aggravate the bicep, when you can wait another week? And if they win, great, you get him out there. And if you don't, well, you continue rehabbing and get ready for 2026 there. So it pushes the timeline out at least a week or two, but I could still see him returning in divisional round, or if they get on a hot streak, return an AFC Championship game, and then he has that week in between the Super Bowl should they win the AFC Championship game.
3 players are questionable for this game. Joey Bosa with a hamstring, didn't practice Wednesday, Thursday, limited on Friday. Tight end Dalton Kincaid, limited all week. And then Jordan Phillips, also questionable, limited on Wednesday, Thursday, practice in full on Friday. Maybe some good momentum there. Just some thoughts on these 3 guys.
So Phillips, he's been out since week 15 against the New England Patriots. He had suffered some type of right ankle injury. Looking at the timeline now, I wouldn't be surprised if they hear that he had a high ankle sprain. We never got really good confirmation on what the actual injury was. The fact he practiced in full, it might suggest he would go just because he hasn't played in a few weeks. And if you can get other guys rest, I think it'd be helpful. I know he's an older player. It'd be great for him to rest and get another week off, but you do need to give some other guys, more time. If you increase the rotation more, get him back in there, get him in the swing of things rather than have him sit on the bench for another week. I think it'd be helpful. Bosa, I had originally thought that he would sit, but I've seen the contract incentives. He's really close to hitting his number of snaps played. I think if he gets 65%, he gets $1 million for defensive snaps. If he gets one more sack, he gets $250,000. Plus, he gets a $30,000 activation bonus. So if he plays in the game, he's gets that money. I mean, that'd be hard to turn down, that kind of money. So I don't get the sense he's going to play a whole lot, but if he can get those metrics and sit him on the bench the rest of the time. As for Kincaid, I just don't see the benefit of playing him. We've seen the limited, and it goes both ways in those cases there. What he can do in the offense. This doesn't mean a whole lot. He doesn't have any contract incentives to hit. Get him right, and then that way you can get him hopefully healthy for a solid 3-4 games, and then you're good to go. Hopefully in the postseason, rather than trying to get him out there, because you got Kaliki Latu, you got Jackson Hawes, and you have Dawson Knox out there. Why get Kincaid out there just to have a body?
Yeah, definitely want Kincaid optimized for the postseason. The offense is different when he's on the field for sure. 3 players that are ruled out. Before I mention that, though, Matt Prater, welcome back. It's good to see you. 3 players that are ruled out: Terrell Bernard with a calf, DaQuan Jones with a calf, and Jordan Poyer with a hamstring. We know they're not going to play on Sunday, but do you have any concern about these 3 players in the postseason?
Not too much with Poyer. I mean, he's a veteran. It's unfortunate what happened with his hamstring against Browns, but it happens. And he's just older. I think they're just being smart with him. Jones, I'm a little worried about, just because this was an aggravation from his calf strain all the way back in week 6 in the pregame warmups, and he keeps on having this thing injured. It's just calf injuries are more likely to reoccur. The Bills are pretty good about not having this happen, but with him being an older player, it probably just doesn't take as much. And he had, re-aggravated it at some point late in the Browns game around the third quarter. Hopefully the time off allows him to get fully right, and then he can be available in that rotation. But the biggest concern I have is Terrell Bernard, because he had the hamstring in the preseason. He had the right ankle injury in the week 6 against Atlanta, and then he tweaked his right calf trying to tackle. I can't remember who it was midway through the second quarter last week. But then you can see him favoring the right side coming off, and then the beat reporters saw that he was motioned to his right calf, initially questionable, then downgraded. He's just been a mess this year. And we've talked about this before. He was a mess coming in from an injury perspective, coming in from Baylor. And so this has followed him throughout his career, and he's played at a great level. I had said when he got his contract extension that his play was outweighing the injury risks. It's probably even right now there. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear that he was playing through something more serious at the end of the season, whenever that occurs. But right now, just try to get him healthy. And then, thankfully, Shaq Thompson is playing as well as he's been playing, and that allows Bernard to be more depth. But it sucks when you see your captain out there struggling like he is. But that's just around the NFL. When injuries start happening, sometimes they build on top of each other, and you never really can kind of get out from underneath it, and they just linger all year.
All right, there you have it. Appreciate you, Dr. Kyle Trimble. Thanks for hopping on and sharing some of your expertise.
Thank you, Joe, and go Bills.
All right, folks, that is going to do it for us here today. The hay is in the barn. We've done what we're going to do to prepare for the Jets, and the only thing that's left to do is to go out there, win this game, and say goodbye to Highmark Stadium the right way. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us here today. Thanks for being here. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.